The bustling mall was alive with chatter, laughter, and the hum of weekend shoppers. People drifted between stores arms full of shopping bags, families with children, enjoying their afternoon, teens laughing, with friends and couples strolling hand in hand. But somewhere in this crowd, a silent tension brewed as Officer Luke Morrison, a uniformed police officer, patrolled the scene with an icy stare. In a rigid stance, he scanned the crowd, not for real threats, but for who he deemed suspicious, known in his department for his history of profiling minorities. Morrison saw his badge as a tool to control, and he was on Edgewood today bring him what he was looking for. His gaze locked on a black woman dressed, casually browsing in a store window. The woman, Agent Kara James, had no idea she was now a target. Out of uniform, Kara looked like any other shopper on her day, off savoring a rare break from her intense FBI duties. She blended effortlessly into the mall scene, unaware of Morrison's unwavering stare from across the corridor. What would he do next? Morrison's lips pressed into a thin line as he reached for his radio. He was certain something was off about her. Why else would she be lingering in that store? Without a second thought, he called for backup, convinced he caught someone red-handed. But would he get the satisfaction he craved? Agent Carriage James wandered deeper into the store, unaware of the storm brewing behind her. She picked up a book, smiling softly at the cover, and turned it over in her hands. At that moment, Officer Morrison entered, his footsteps heavy with determination. Without preamble, he spoke sharply. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me." Kara looked up, confused, but remained calm. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked, her voice steady. Morrison's eyes narrowed. "I saw you acting suspiciously. Are you shoplifting?" A few heads turned. The crowd grew, drawn by Morrison's escalating voice. Kara raised an eyebrow, still composed. "I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just shopping." But Morrison's face flushed with irritation. "You're resisting arrest," he barked, snapping handcuffs onto her wrists before she could respond. People gasped, some pulling out phones to record. Could Morrison justify his actions with no evidence? Kara maintained her calm demeanor, but the thing of humiliation was clear. Who was this officer to treat her like a criminal? And how much longer would this go on? As Kara stood handcuffed, surrounded by onlookers, Morrison continued his tirade. "Why don't you explain why you were lingering around, looking for something to steal?" Kara took a deep breath, clearly weighing her words. "Officer, if you'd listen, you'd understand there's been a mistake." But Morrison was relentless, his tone growing sharper. He ignored the murmurs from the crowd, ignored the pointed questions from bystanders, ignored the pleas for him to stop. Would he even listen to reason, or was he too far gone? Kara's patience was visibly thinning. She watched Morrison rummage through her belongings with increasing fervor. The crowd was murmuring now, people questioning aloud whether Morrison had crossed the line, whether he was even following protocol. And then someone shouted, "You better be right, officer, or you're going to regret this." Morrison scoffed, too wrapped up in his assumption of guilt to recognize the danger of his actions. Could this possibly end well for him? Morrison's hands trembled as he fished through Kara's bag, pulling out an identification card. But when he looked at it, his face fell. FBI, the letters gleamed unmistakable. His mouth went dry as he processed the revelation. He had just humiliated an undercover FBI agent. The crowd sensed the change, watching his sudden silence with a mix of horror and satisfaction. A whisper traveled through the audience. "She's an FBI agent." Kara held his gaze unwavering. "What were you hoping to find, Officer Morrison?" she asked, her voice cold and piercing. Morrison's face paled as he stumbled over his words, attempting an apology that only made the crowd's anger intensify. What excuse could he possibly give to justify this? The question hung heavy in the air as Morrison loosened the cuffs, his hands shaking. How quickly would word spread of this monumental error? The crowd erupted, voices merging into a wave of outrage. A few clapped, some uttered, and Others hurled accusations at Morrison, some even taunting him for his disgrace. Morrison's face burned as he realized the full extent of his mistake. He looked to Carrera, but she simply pulled herself to her full height, removed the cuffs, and adjusted her sleeves with a steady composure. This incident won't go unnoticed, she told him, and the crowd cheered. Phones that had recorded the entire ordeal were quickly uploading the footage online, and the realization hit him there was no undoing this. Would his career survive? What would people say when they saw his actions so publicly exposed? The footage went viral, turning him into a figure of scorn. As Kara calmly walked away, Morrison knew his name would be tarnished by mourning days. Later, news of Morrison's suspension hit the media, the footage now infamous. Communities and advocacy groups demanded change, citing the incident as evidence of racial profiling. Morrison's career lay in shambles, a testament to his abuse of power. Meanwhile, Kara took this chance to speak out, raising awareness about the perils of unchecked prejudice within law enforcement. Through her dignified response, Kara became a beacon of resilience and justice, a reminder of the strength that lies in calm, steadfast action. In the end, Morrison was left to confront the consequences of his actions, and Kara's story continued to inspire, challenging audiences to reflect what will it take to end such biases, and how many more must endure this before true change arrives. Following the viral incident at the mall, the lives of both Agent Kara James and Officer Luke Morrison diverged dramatically, each facing the future shaped by their actions and the public response. Both would navigate professional and personal repercussions, though their paths reflected starkly contrasting journeys. Kara returned to the FBI with heightened visibility, earning widespread respect for her handling of the mall incident with grace and composure, while her immediate reaction had been to continue her role as if nothing had happened. Her superiors encouraged her to take on a new mission, educating law enforcement agencies on the dangers of racial profiling and implementing better training and de-escalation techniques. Recognizing the potential for change, Kara became a key figure in these efforts, delivering lectures, leading workshops, and pushing for accountability within the police and federal departments. For Carrera, this new mission extended beyond her role at the Bureau. She began to see her position as one that could bring about meaningful change. Her approach wasn't confrontational, but rooted in the values of empathy and justice, drawing on her experiences to inspire others. Her testimony was powerful because it revealed the trauma and humiliation that racial profiling inflicts regardless of status or position. Her presentations were riveting, challenging officers and agents to examine their biases and rethink their approach to policing. Kara's story resonated with recruits, officers, and senior law enforcement officials alike, making her an influential figure in the fight for a more just and equitable justice system. Outside of her work, Kara used her platform to advocate for racial equality and fair treatment for all citizens. She made guest appearances on talk shows, participated in community panels, and collaborated with activists, including both local and national groups working to reform the justice system. For Carrera, her future was no longer limited to FBI missions. She had embraced a broader role as an advocate and educator. Despite her demanding schedule, she continued her undercover and field work, balancing her original passion for investigative work with her newfound responsibility to make law enforcement better. For Officer Luke Morrison, the aftermath of the mall incident brought about one of the greatest reckonings of his life. Following a brief suspension, he faced an internal review, which led to his demotion and reassignment to a desk job, a far cry from the street patrol he once used to exert power. His once confident demeanor crumbled as his reputation within the force was tarnished. Even outside of work, he faced public disdain with many citizens recognizing him from the viral footage. It was a wake-up call, one that left him at a crossroads. At first, Morrison harbored resentment, blaming his downfall on public opinion and claiming he'd been unfairly targeted by the media. But over time, as he became isolated from colleagues and recognized by strangers, he found himself questioning his behavior and beliefs. Could his actions truly be justified, or had his actions been a reflection of deep-seated biases he never fully acknowledged? Morrison eventually sought counseling, where he began to confront the roots of his prejudice. The therapeutic process forced him to re-examine his values, not only as an officer, but as a person. His counselor suggested he work in community service, particularly in neighborhoods he'd previously seen through a lens of suspicion. Initially resistant, Morrison reluctantly agreed, soon discovering that his assumptions had been misguided. The experiences he shared with the people he once looked down upon began to open his eyes, softening his hardened views and dismantling his preconceptions. Humbled by his experience, Morrison gradually became an advocate for police reform within his department, openly discussing his own mistakes and learning curve. He volunteered to work with young recruits, cautioning them against the mindset that had brought him so much disgrace. Though he knew he would never fully regain the respect he had lost, he hoped his openness might prevent others from making the same mistakes. Eventually, Morrison's story became a case study in reform programs for law enforcement officers, serving as a warning of the perils of UN prejudice and the importance of self-awareness in positions of authority. In time, both Kara and Morrison's lives became symbols of change for different reasons. Kara's poise in the face of discrimination earned her a lasting reputation as an advocate for justice, with her story inspiring both current and future generations in law enforcement. Her commitment to her work and values made her a role model, representing the resilience of those who rise above adversity to effect positive change. Meanwhile, Morrison's journey of redemption, though tainted with mistakes, served as a reminder that self-reflection and growth are possible, even in those who fall short. Through his transparency about his own failings, he left a mark on the next wave of officers, giving them the tools to challenge prejudice and biases before they turn to harmful actions. In the end, Kara and Morrison's paths, though originating from intense encounter, converged in a shared commitment to change within the system, creating a legacy that would inspire progress and prevent future injustices. Their story, once controversial, became a powerful example of accountability, growth, and the shared human journey toward a more just world.